man, that last worship song you guys did, that was powerful. What song is that? What? So Will I. Who sings it? Hillsong. All right, So Will I by Hillsong. That was incredible. If you're watching this online, go look the song up, because I could just call the band up here and they could play it again, and I could be like, all right, that's the lesson, belief right there. Awesome. Man, powerful. But hey, we're finishing up this series tonight on this thing called belief. And we've been in this series for 3 weeks now. And 3 weeks ago, we simply asked the question, what is belief? And belief, we came to this conclusion. After looking at the way Jesus spoke to the disciples, we came to the conclusion that belief is simply acknowledging in your mind that something is true. And see, here's the thing that we struggle with as Christians, is that we feel like in order to believe, in order to have faith, in order to follow Jesus, we have to have the rest of our lives figured out. And Jesus did not say that. Jesus came to his disciples before his death, and he said, listen, everything that you thought you knew is not true. Here's all I'm going to ask you to do. Believe me. You don't have to have the next step figured out. You don't have to have the next 5 years figured out. All I'm asking you to do is simply acknowledge in your mind that what I say is true. And here's the deal. That takes all the pressure off. It takes all the pressure off of us. It takes all the pressure off of our friends. It allows us to recognize that this thing that we call faith is really just a step-by-step process. And the first step is acknowledging in our minds that what Jesus says is true. And that leads to faith. And so 2 weeks ago, we asked the question, all right, so what is faith? And we looked at Hebrews chapter 11, where the writer of Hebrews says, now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. And it's this beautiful depiction of the fact that when we believe Jesus, even those things that we absolutely cannot be certain of this side of heaven, that God is going to come back. We hope that happens, and that he's going to take us to be with him. We're going to spend eternity with him. We hope that happens. But there is never going to be scientific proof that happens. But the beautiful thing about faith is when we believe that what Jesus says is true and we live a life of faith, suddenly the things that we hope for are certainty. They're certain in our life. And I challenge you guys again, saying faith is a step-by-step process. It's not something where we jump to where we need to be. And so I simply asked you guys to ask yourself the question, all right, what's the next step God has for me? And then last week, we asked the question, where does baptism fit in? And after looking at the way John baptized people and looking at Jesus' baptism and looking at how Jesus told his disciples to go baptize others after he rose from the dead, we came to the conclusion that the baptism is another step in our faith. It's an outward expression that, man, we are looking at our past and we are saying, all right, I've made some mistakes, I'm forgiven for those. And we are looking to our future and we are saying the rest of my life is committed to Jesus Christ. And at the end of the day, it's an important step, but it's just another step in our faith. And so I want to finish up tonight simply asking the question, how do we share our faith? How do we share our faith? There are all kinds of formulas. I grew up in Christian culture in the 90s and early 2000s, and so there's the Roman road, and there's the picture of you separated by sin, and the cross is the bridge, and there's all these things that I learned growing up that, like, if you wanted to share your faith and you shared this verse and this verse and this verse and this verse and this verse. And I think the intentions with those were good, but I think that as Christian culture, we have really complicated sharing our faith. Let me ask you a question. Why do you like the things that you like? Think about the things that you are a fan of. Super Bowl's coming up. Maybe you have a favorite football team. Maybe there's a certain sport you like to play or sport you like to watch. Maybe there's a certain hobby that you have that you really enjoy doing. Maybe there's a place that you really like to visit, and if you could go there every year, you would. Maybe there's something that you just love doing with your friends, and that's your thing. You just absolutely love doing that thing. Why do you enjoy the things that you enjoy? Now you could say, all right, like, I enjoy football because it's fun to watch, right? You just people hitting each other in incredible plays and amazing feats of athleticism. And we have all these reasons that we like the things that we like. But I have a feeling that if we peeled back the layers of why we like the things that we like, and we got down to the core of why we are who we are and why we like the things that we like and why we enjoy doing the things that we enjoy, it all comes back to relationships. I'm betting that if you peeled back all of the layers, that you would recognize that the reason that you are a fan of whatever you're a fan of is because someone in your life is a fan of that also. And that you can engage in a relationship because you and that other person are both fans of the same thing. I cannot count the number of times that I have heard people say, I love Fortnite. Why? Because I get on and play with my friends. An entire video game culture has been built around the online experience of being able to engage in relationships while playing video games. No longer do you sit at home in front of a TV by yourself with your own little controller. It started out that way with Atari back in the 1980s. And then it is continually morphed into more and more and more and more relational play. Think about it. Atari 2600. You played the game Pong or Frogger. You were all alone and you were trying to get the frog across the road, or you were trying to get the ball to bounce off the paddles over and over and over. Nintendo came out. What happened when Nintendo came out? 2 players. What? 2 people can now play. This is awesome, right? And then it came to 4 players. And then there was online gaming where you could connect systems together. I remember when I was in college, that was huge. You could connect multiple systems together and all play together. And now, through the internet, I mean, you can connect with systems all over the place. You don't even have to have them in the same building or the same room. My guess is that the things that you love them because there is a relational aspect to those things that you love. I told you guys last week that when I grew up, I was a Michigan football fan. I was a Michigan football fan because my dad was a Michigan football fan, and we could watch the games together. I love country music. I haven't always loved country music, but I love country music because my wife loves country music. I love going to the Children's Museum of Indianapolis because I have so many incredible memories of watching my children just be in awe of the exhibits at the Children's Museum of Indianapolis. Now, sure, I could go to the Children's Museum of Indianapolis by myself, and it would be kind of cool, but it doesn't even compare to the experience I have with my family in a relational aspect. And my guess is that the reason that you love the things that you love is because there is someone in your life that loves those things too. Now, I want you to imagine with me for just a moment. Imagine that thing that you absolutely love. Okay? Now, take away everyone in your life. Do that thing by yourself. Now, for a while, yeah, that could be cool. Maybe you love to read or love to do, Brinkley, my son, he is a reader through and through. Like, he loves to read. And maybe that's you, and you're like, dude, if I could read by myself, no interruptions, that would be awesome, right? Now, take that moment and stretch it out for an entire month. You are completely alone doing the thing that you love for an entire month. There is no one to connect with. There is no one around. Jackson just said basketball. You'd be shooting baskets on the court by yourself for an entire month. My guess is that it would be fun for about the first day, maybe a week. But after that, you'd be like, this is awful. I can tell you something, Brinkley loves to read, but Brinkley loves it when he is reading a book that Kirsten or I am also reading. And we can talk about the chapters, and we can talk about the characters, and he can say, where are you at? How far have you been? And we can say, where are you at? How far have you been? And this relational aspect. I'm guessing that we would love a whole lot less things if there was no relational aspect in our lives. And Jesus recognized this. You know, when Jesus talked about sharing faith with his disciples, he recognized that we are who we are because of the relationships in our lives. That relationships make a difference. That the way that we love matters. And so Jesus sat down with his disciples the night he was going to die. He is hours away from the cross, and he sits down and he washes the disciples' feet. And he shares this meal that we call the Last Supper with the disciples. And you got to imagine and put yourself there where Jesus knows what's coming. And there's so much to express before he gets arrested and tried and goes to the cross. And there are so many things that he wants his disciples to absorb. And he knows their world is going to be flipped upside down. And just like we talked about a couple weeks ago, it's not an earthly kingdom, it's a heavenly kingdom. And how does he get that into their minds? And how does he get it to where they understand that they can go out, and even though he is not going to be with them anymore, they can continue to share his message, and they can continue to gather disciples. And I love that he sits down in John 13:35 and he says this, a new commandment I give to you. These guys grew up as good, God-following Jews. They knew all about commandments. They knew that you followed the law of Moses. You followed the commandments. That was what you did. If you were a good, God-fearing man, then you followed the commandments. And Jesus says this, a new commandment I give to you. In other words, this is the commandment that takes the cake. I'm laying it out for you right here. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. Here's what I love about this. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. See, here's our tendency. Our tendency is to argue people to Jesus Christ. Our tendency is to go out and to say, all right, here's the deal. I'm going to read you this verse and this verse and this verse and this verse and this verse, and you will absorb this information into your head. And then when you absorb this information, you are going to believe this information. You are going to get baptized, and then you are going to live a life following Jesus Christ. And that is how you bring people to Jesus. And Jesus says, no, listen, it's not about an argument. It's not about having all the right answers. It's not about having all the right things to say. At the end of the day, people are going to know that you follow me. How? Why? Because you love each other. Because I grew up memorizing the Roman road, and I grew up drawing the picture of the cross that bridges the gap. And those are great things. Don't get me wrong. Those are excellent tools that can be used for people that engage in God in that way. But if they're not done with love, it's just white noise. The reason that you love the things that you love is not because someone argued you into loving those things that you love. When I was growing up, my dad did not sit me down and say, now listen, son, got something really important to tell you. We're Michigan fans. And we are going to be Michigan fans. And you are going to be a Michigan fan. He didn't do that. We just watched Michigan games together, and guess what? I became a Michigan fan. If you want people to be fans and followers of Jesus, you do life together, and you love people in the process. And guess what? Before too long, they become fans and followers of Jesus. And it's this beautiful, absolutely incredible process that happens. Love changes people. The Skit Guys, I show a lot of Skit Guys videos around here. Tommy and Eddie Woodard, they're the Skit Guys. They actually went to high school together. And I came across this video probably a few years back. And it is this incredible depiction of one of Eddie's friends from high school. One of his dear friends, and the story of how she changed people's lives through the way that she loved them. Check this video out.
It's been 20 years since I graduated high school. Tonight's the big 20-year class reunion. Do I look like I've been out of high school for 20 years? Okay, never mind. I answered my own question. If I'm not mistaken, this right here, this was Mrs. Tomlinson's geometry class. And now it's a science lab. But okay, this class, I was never very good in geometry, and I'd always protest, why do I need geometry? I'll never use geometry in all my life. And she'd always smile at me and say, wait till you get older, you'll be glad you did this. And you know what? I still never use it. But the real reason why I came down this hallway was to find a locker. 1, 2, here, right here. This locker, this was Stacy Bell's locker. She was my best friend in high school. She introduced herself to me when I was in 7th grade. She like picked me out of a crowd, it seemed like. But you know, we became friends. I mean, we shared everything together. We were supposed to bring pictures of high school memories and stuff like that. Okay, I brought a picture of me and Stacy at our senior prom. I know I look like Harry Potter. But if there was one person that I could see at this 20-year reunion, it'd be her. She changed my life in some ways. I'll never forget her.
I'll never forget that day. I was walking down this hallway and I dropped my books, right? I mean, they went everywhere and everyone's just walking by and I'm trying to pick them up, and you can imagine me bending down to pick up books was a whole production. And this pretty blonde girl was standing about right here at her locker. And all of a sudden she looks down at me trying to get the books, and she's like, let me help you with those. And I'm like, okay, you know? She picks up my books and looks at me and she's, hi, my name is Stacy. And I'm like, hey, I'm Dennis. She's like, how about I carry these to your next class for you? And I'm like, how about you do that, you know? So Stacy carries my books to class. By the time we got there, I think that I know everything about her because she's just talking and talking. And then she sits my books on my desk and starts to walk out. And I'm thinking to myself, well, good for you. You did your good deed of the week, you know? And then she turns around. She goes, hey, Dennis, I've got a great idea. Some of my friends and I are going roller skating tomorrow night. How about you join us? And I'm like, yeah, I don't do so well on wheels. She kind of laughed and she said, it's okay, I will help you. I said, okay. So that next night, I find myself at a roller skating rink with Stacy and her friends. I don't know who was more scared, me or the guy I handed my money to and said, size 9.5, please. And I sat on the side while Stacy and her friends were roller skating for a while, but it felt good just to be part of a group. And then Stacy skates over out of nowhere and says, Dennis, come on out and skate. And I'm like, no, I'm cool. And she's like, no, come on. I'm like, serious, She goes, come on, I will help you. I was like, okay. So Stacy helped me out on the roller skating rink. You should have seen everybody's eyes. I just looked at him and said, it's okay, I'm a professional skater. But with Stacy's help, I made it all the way around the skating rink twice. It was so awesome. As Stacy was dropping me off at my house that night, she said, Dennis, I got another good idea. Tomorrow, my family is having a cookout and going swimming. Why don't you join us? And I was like, yeah, this body don't float, you know? She said, it's okay, I will help you. I said, okay. So there I was that next day, standing in the shallow end of Stacy's pool. It was like, wee, you know. Stacy started laughing. She goes, Dennis, the shallow end's no fun. Come on in the deep end with me. I was like, no, it's okay. She goes, no, come on. I was like, no, I'm cool. She goes, Dennis, come on. I will. And I stopped her. And I said, I know, you will help me. But she did. She held out her arms and helped me float in the water. It was so great. After we'd finished swimming, we were eating, and she was telling me her dreams. I tell you, I really believed that girl could change the world. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she turns the tables on me. She looks at me and she says, hey, Dennis, tell me about your dreams. And I'm like, well, I don't really have any dreams. She goes, come on, everybody's got dreams. And I was like, no, not me. And she just kept persisting, and I got so frustrated with her. And so finally, I looked at her, and I said, okay, you want to know my dream? I'll tell you my dream. In my dream, these old hands, they are no longer crippled. And I can pick up things and throw things, and it's no problem. And in my dream, my hip is right in place, and I can walk and run and jump just like everybody else. And I said, in my dream, I don't need these old glasses to see anymore. And in my dream, my mouth is normal, just like everybody else's. And I'm just like everybody else. But then I realize it's only a dream. We sat there in silence for quite a while. And then Stacy looked at me, and I'll never forget what she said. She said, Dennis, that's the dumbest dream I've ever heard. And I was like, well, you sure know how to make a crippled guy feel good. And she said, no, Dennis, you don't get it. You were fearfully and wonderfully made. And I looked at her and I said, no, Stacy, you don't get it. I'm a joke. And she just shook her head at me. Dennis, God does not look as man looks. She said, sure, man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart, Dennis. And you have a great heart. I like to think she was right. I hope I do have a good heart. I know she had a great heart. And that girl changed my life.
You know how I said there was one person I want to see at this reunion? Stacy? She's not here. She's not coming. When I think about her, I think about Galatians 6:10. She epitomizes this. Therefore, as we have opportunities, let us do good for all people. She was just good. She found opportunities to love God and love others. I use her in the past tense because Stacy, she died in a car wreck our freshman year in college. Jesus gave us visual in Matthew 10:42, and he talks about kindness and compassion. It's almost as if you give a cup of cold water to somebody. That's what she did for me. She gave me a cup of cold water and she pointed me toward God. She did it for me. She did it for a lot of people. She had a bumper sticker that said, my life is dedicated to saving your life. I'm part of her legacy. So much so, I'm still talking about it 20 years later.
So our production feed got cut a little bit short, but after this video was over, I recapped Galatians 6:10. Therefore, as often as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people. And I talked to the students about how if you want to share your faith, just go love people. We were at Winter Jam this past weekend. It was an awesome show, and Skillet lead singer John Cooper got up and he talked about how we live in this time of fear and how everything around us is kind of crumbling. And everything that people have relied on for stability in our culture has lost its stability, whether that's job security or money or even your individual health. But true security is found in Jesus Christ. And John Cooper said, we live in a time and an age where we have an incredible opportunity to show people the true security that is found in Jesus Christ. And if we want to share our faith, we go out and we love people. And I gave our students a practical challenge, and the practical challenge was simply this. Find one person that needs the love of Jesus. And the practical challenge is kind of a rest of the year challenge. This week, I just want you to pray. Who is that one person, God? Who is that one person that you want me to find that needs your love? And then just spend the rest of the school year loving that person.